Hello Internet people and medieval foresters and medieval reenactors of all ages. I'm Lloyd and this is Historic Outdoors. A few years back I started a group called the Foresters, which has since got members from Nova Scotia to Florida, from Texas to Australia, even a guy in England. So must have struck a chord with somebody. And there's a lot of people that are enjoying medieval reenactment in the outdoors. If you don't know what a forester is, in the medieval era they were kind of like the game wardens that hunted down the outlaws and the poachers and people that did bad things in the forest. So yeah, that's what we do. We reenact, and we've been getting a lot of questions, and so we're making this video for one of our viewers that wanted to know a little bit about kit and clothing and what gear we use in the medieval outdoors, and that's what we're going to show you today. So the first thing that I normally put on with my personal kit is I've got a pair of joined hose, and they've been repaired a great deal. Split hose were the norm up until late 13th century, and then they started getting into joined hose. Quite frequently they wouldn't have a crotch piece in them, they'd have a cod piece that was attached the later on you got, but I like things that function, so I don't care about history when it's not to be seen. And normally in the 15th century these would be tied up with points, and then it would kind of tie to your vest or your jacket, but I hold this up with just a simple little belt, and that's what I use for pants. The way that I design them not to be fashionable but to be functional, and so I can rock hop and climb and step over logs, and I have ripped them, but they're not the super tight variety that's fashionable in the medieval era. So not 100%, but when you're out here in the woods, you don't care. And the next thing I put on typically is an undershirt, and I've got a whole bunch of them. I recommend you have 4 or 5 of these. This one's a little bit rough, but yeah, you get the idea. Typically nobody sees these, but I like to have a few of them. They get soaked in sweat, and just so you don't smell like a barn, it's a good idea to have a few of those. And so I always have a couple of undershirts with me anytime I'm at an event. If I'm just going out in the woods, I might only have one or two. But over that, I typically have a wool shirt. And this one's got a little bit of embroidery done on the sleeves, just because. As they say, it's for nice. And it's just one of the things that you do. Not everybody does embroidery, but I don't know. I went through a little bit of a phase where I decided to try it out. And that's what I did. And then I topped this off with a hood. In pretty much any weather, you want a hood. And this one here is double lined. Some people say they didn't double line them, but I don't know. I'm dubious of that. They may have, they may not have. Hard to say. But I like a double lined hood. And some of the more fashionable ones might have like this big long leer pipe thing coming off them. I'm not a big fan of having something that is going to get caught in the trees and potentially choke me to death, or somebody's going to grab like you're in high school. So I tend to like a bit of a shorter hood, and then there's a couple of pewter badges on there. You probably wouldn't have those out in the woods, and if I were going to wear this hood out in the woods, I'd probably take them off, depending what I'm doing. Pair of medieval boots, I guess. Those ones have been kicking around for years and years and years. They're of no particular design anymore. They've been repaired so many times. I think I've resold them 4, 5, 6 times, and so they're basically just trash boots at this point. I don't mind wearing them in the water and in the mud, and anyway. But yeah, good pair of medieval boots. And then I wear a duty belt kind of thing, which is a larger belt that goes over top of my my shirt. It's got a little brass buckle on it here, and then there's a sewing kit that's attached to that. I'm not going to bother opening it up, but suffice to say there's a couple of needles in there and a little bit of thread. If I got to fix something in the field, I can. But I got that right on my boat. There's also a rondelle dagger on this. The trick to wearing these is you cut a little hole in the back of your purse and slide the scabbard of the dagger through, and that kind of keeps it. And this is kind of a dagger meant specifically for hurting people. And so it's important that a forester has one of those. And this here is a smaller belt, which is used to keep everything closed, and it too has a knife on it, and if you take your larger belt off, you're still closed up. And this has got a little work knife, which is meant for everyday chores and eating and such, and they have leather sheaths. And then the final piece of equipment that I carry on my person is a hunting horn, and the hunting horn's got a baldric on it. This one's got some hemp rope on it. You see illustrations of them carrying hemp rope on their horn like this. It can be used for dogs, and it can also be used for tying people up, I guess, if you have to bring them back to face trial and they're not very interested in going. Inside my my bag here, I don't have that much stuff. It's kind of tight. I've got a bag here, which is a cloth bag, and it's been waxed many times. And there's a metal tin here, which I keep my char cloth in. And then a little leather bag here that's all tied up. And then inside that, I've got a steel striker. And also inside this bag, I've got a piece of chert and a piece of English flint for lighting fire. And you never have too many bags, so I've got all kinds of bags of all kinds of sorts. And then I got another little bag here that I don't know what's in it. Yeah, I just stuff tinder and birch bark and stuff in this as I go. And then lastly, I carry piece of linen canvas, and you can see where I cut a section out of it to do a repair. It's good, you can put it down so that you've got a place to work, and also really good for making repairs. So that's pretty much what I carry on my person. This is not period, this is a shoe polish tin, but you know, they probably made their char cloth in clay pots, if at all. They may have used tinder fungus or plant material, hard to say. This is what I use because it works, and it's pretty easy, and I don't have to go knocking tinder fungus off every tree I see. So yeah, let's put it all together, and we'll show you some of the other stuff that I use. So this here is the pack frame that I use when I'm doing outdoor forester activities, and right now it weighs in at 37 pounds, which is way too much. The first thing that needs saying is there was no such thing as camping in the medieval period. Not the way that we do it anyway. There may have been guys that camped when they're on campaign, when they're at war, and merchants may have had to overnight on occasion, but the majority of that was done in inns and taverns, or the local farmer's barn, or the local farmer's haystack. Some places in England there were caves that travelers used. And to not be in the place where you were supposed to be that the inn, the tavern, the church, some lord's manor, or even the local farm, if you were caught, you would be considered unlawfully at large without patronage. So the Lord wasn't your patron, the church wasn't your patron, and you weren't getting hospitality from someone. So you could be arrested because they wanted to know who you were and where you're from and what the hell you were doing out there. So camping, not a thing in the medieval era, but people did go out. And so this is some of the gear that, well, this is all of the gear that I would have for absolute worst case scenario, having to stay out for a month. So we'll kind of go through it in reverse order here. The first thing we got is just a basic hatchet. You can do a lot of work with this, be that firewood or knocking up a shelter. But very important to have one of these. Also pretty useful for pounding in your tent stakes. And the next thing we get her undone here is I've got a water costrel, and I've got a little wooden cup here. Wooden cup is not so important. You can fill this up and you can drink from it, but this holds, I don't know, probably 500 or 600 milliliters of water. It's leather, and it's got like pine pitch on the inside to seal it. And then just a little wooden cup. You could bake a bowl of soup out of this, or you know, there's all kinds of things you can do with it. But water, very important, one of the hardest things to find, so it's good to have it with you. Then I've got some braided straps here, which kind of hold everything together. And this is my rain gear. I'll show you that last. So the straps that I'm holding this on with are just layers of string that I've braided together. This one here I think is a 6-plate, and this one here I think is an 8-plate braid. It's not too hard to do. You can figure out how to make your own tie-down string. And then I've got two things here which are called scrips, but most people like to call them a sausage bag. And if it were just me overnighting, I would keep with me just the contents of this one bag. And this is a lot lighter than 37 pounds. And I'll show you the contents of that later. And this here is a little bit bigger. Again, it's got a shoulder strap on it. Again, just a sausage bag, and this one doesn't have the fancy closure on it, so I just tied some rope around it and twisted it up with a piece of antler that I had to tighten it. And yeah, I'll show you the contents of that. And then my pack frame is pretty simple. I've had it for a number of years now. It's a couple of cherry sticks and piece of ash that I carved a little piece of lumbar support out of. Back in the day, they probably just would have used ropes for straps, but I like a bit of comfort, so I made myself some canvas and leather straps. And yeah, not too hard. Some sticks and some string and some straps, and you get a pack frame, and it's dead light. So we'll put that out of the way. And the first thing that we'll have a look at is what's in this bag. And to tell you the honest truth, I forget what's in this bag. I know there's stuff in here. Okay. This appears to be my tarp. So, this is just a piece of extremely light canvas tarp. And I've sewn some attachment points onto it. And then you can see where I've repaired it. And then inside of that, we've got some tent pegs that I've made. And basically this used to be a tree, and this had a branch on it, so I cut it below the branch, and anyway, you see it's not rocket science. And this is a tent peg that I've picked up that somebody left behind at one of our events, and another forester made this, and you can tell that they care a great deal more about what their tent pegs look like. This is some rope that I made. Again, it's braided, and this is just some natural fiber rope. I think this is sizzle rope. And this one here is hemp rope. So we got hemp, we got sizzle, and we've got jute. And if you didn't, if I didn't tell you the difference, you probably wouldn't know. So get yourself some natural fiber rope, make yourself some tent pegs, make yourself a tarp. But it's always good to have lots of rope, and if you're out in the woods, you can make these as you go. But I'm carrying them with me today just to show you, because I don't feel like making any more. And that's in the one bag, and that's what I would carry just for, you know, an overnighter in the woods. Don't really need too much more than that. I mean, you could sleep in a tree, or in a cave, or in the pig shed, or wherever you wanted. But I don't know, I like to keep the rain off, so that's what I do. And then this bag here is a bit more complicated. So this is the luxury items, I guess you could say. So we can figure out how to get this piece of rope off here. Yeah, there we go. And this is another scrip, or sausage bag, which apparently I need to do a bit of repair to. There we go. And then inside of this is a canvas bedroll and a blanket. So this canvas bedroll is based on kind of like a navy one, and it's just a canvas envelope. And at the very top here, you can see I put a different colored canvas on, and it's hollow, or, you know, it's an envelope. You can stuff stuff in it. So you could stuff this full of wool, you could stuff it full of old rope, you could stuff it full of blankets, but let's face it, let's be reasonable. It also fits a thermarest mattress, or a yoga mat, or whatever you got. So you don't have to go stuffing it full of, you know, straw, or hay, or leaves, but you can. And that's what they did. And we've also got some socks here, some null binding socks. I know that joined hose with the feet sewn in were very, very popular back in the day. I think they were probably really, really good when it was like -5 and everything was frozen. But if you were doing this day in, day out, you probably don't want feet in your leggings, because they're going to wear out, and you're going to have them full of holes anyway. And if you're walking through water and stuff for any length of time, you're going to get fungus. You're going to get like athlete's foot. So unless they stuff their boots full of old man's beard, which is anti-fungicidal, I think they wore socks quite late into the period. So that's what I do. And there's nothing any better than getting to camp and changing your socks from wet ones to dry ones and drying your feet by the fire. I also keep an extra pair of medieval underwear. You get sick. Any number of things can happen. You can eat something that doesn't agree with you, and you're going to want an extra pair of underpants. And then we've got another bag here. And inside the bag is yet another bag. And then we've got a couple of luxury items. We've got a horn spoon, and we've got a horn bowl, and I've got a little awl here for doing leather work that I keep in there. And then this is just a tiny leather container, and then inside of that I've got a whole bunch of dice for playing games and gambling and getting up to all kinds of nonsense. So those are some of the things I like to keep in the luxury bag, because it's way more fun to eat with a spoon than it is with your fingers, and that way you don't get dirty fingers and you don't get sick. So that's a luxury. And inside of this I've got a little dried sausage that I made. The key to this is it's 66% ground pork, just the kind that you get in the grocery store, and it's 33% ground beef fat or suet. And you mix that up with whatever spices you want, and then it's 3% salt by volume. So, you know, however much meat you use, you figure out what 3% of that is, and you add that in salt. And you mash that up, and then you throw in some red wine to get it fermenting, and then you put it in the skin. This one here is flavored with juniper and long pepper, which I guess is great if you like gin or floor cleaner, and I don't. And so I've got a whole bunch of this stuff that I don't really care for, but it's shelf stable, and it takes about 10 weeks to ferment. You might get some mold on it. Don't worry about that. You can, if it grosses you out, you can wash it off with vinegar or beer or wine or something. But this stuff's just been hanging up in my kitchen in all weather, including now in August, and perfectly shelf stable after it's fermented. So the last thing we've got in here is we've got a coat, and you can see it's been repaired, and it's just for cooler weather. That's pretty much all there is to that. My blanket in here, I've got two wool blankets that are sewn together. I've got a gray one on one side and a green one on the other side. It's doubtful that anybody did that, but that's what I did because I like a little bit of weight, and I don't know, it's just kind of cool. And that's what's in the bedroll bag. So we'll get the bedroll bag out of the way here. Put that to the side, and then I'll show you my rain gear. This almost never gets used for rain gear because what I'm wearing works pretty good. But this is just a canvas cloak. There's not much to it. Like I say, it's just got raw edges on it. And this is tent weight canvas, and I just made a cloak out of it. And then I've got a hood that I've also made it a canvas, and I think I've used this once in the last 10 years. So mostly this gets used as like a ground sheet that I put my bedroll on. And again, you can protect this with, put like Thompson's water seal on it, or kind of like a tent sealer. You could put beeswax on it. You could put beeswax and bacon fat, which is what I'm pretty fond of. But yeah, that's the rest of the luxury gear, and that's pretty much everything I would carry in pretty much any circumstance. So what I'm doing right now, I'm taking my coat and my rain gear hood that I don't need, and I'm stuffing it in this sausage bag. That's going to be a pillow. Just like that. You're going to bring it with you, may as well use it. And if you're not going to use it, no point bringing it with you. So, this is a pretty good base camp, I guess, for 1 or 2 nights. Like I say, you don't need much. You need a couple of tent pegs and a little bit of rope and a tarp and you're good. It's August, so I don't have to worry about snow. It's been well, sunny for 2 days anyway, so even if I did get a little bit damp, it's not going to be the end of the world. And this is going to keep most any rain off, you know, unless it's a hurricane. And if it was, I would rig it different. I'd rig it, you know, as an A-frame or like a forester's tarp. But you know, I could be pretty comfortable in this. I could do 3 days in this pretty easily because I got some luxury items with me. And there's nothing stopping me from, you know, bringing a bit of barley, and I could bring a little pot with me and have a cook up here. Not something that was probably done historically. You know, if you were, I don't know, if you're a Viking and you're raiding inland, you probably wouldn't carry a pot because you just steal one from somebody, right? And if you're a forester, you'd probably carry a bag lunch, pretty much the same that I did. And you know, most people would go home and sleep in their house at night. So this is pretty rare in the historical context, but we like to do it. So, you know, if you like to do it, don't let anybody stop you. So, but it is pretty hot. I mean, I'm wearing wool in August, and for that reason, it's good to have lots of water with you and camp by a water source. And realistically, you might want to carry a modern water purifier with you. Depending on the area you live in, you might trust the water, you might not. So yeah, those are some things to think about anyway. And I think I've earned a little nap here. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Gonna have myself a little bit more water and replenish some of the fluids that I've sweat out in the last 20 minutes. And yeah, if you like this kind of content, feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and make sure to comment as well. I always like to see the comments. I'm a small enough channel that I can usually get back to you know, everybody, or at the very least, you know, send you a like. And you know, it feeds the YouTube algorithm, and you know, I guess that pushes you up in the results so more people can see it. I don't know. My views have really dropped off in the last year or so, but I guess that's YouTube doing YouTube stuff. I'm also on the Rumble, which is kind of like the Canadian version of YouTube, a little bit smaller, but we'll see how that goes. I like to support Canadian stuff. Yeah, I think that's about it. And as always, if you don't like the kind of stuff that I'm doing, share it with your enemies. I will punish them for free.